Well, this particular show was taped on the eve of Halloween, and we received a very special treat, and that was our first light frost. Now, of course, there's some positives that come along with the frost in the winter, and that is it slows our insects down on some of our fall vegetables, but also Alan, our assistant, likes it because it causes all the plants to die and he gets away with doing less work. But let me show you how our fall garden is doing. This is our green Goliath broccoli, and again, remember the cold temperatures until the teens or even lower really aren't going to hurt our broccoli. It's slowing down the cabbage loopers where we're getting a little bit of feeding, but it hasn't been too bad this fall, and we haven't sprayed them any. But our heads are not that big, but we'll still get some good production, and this one's ready to harvest before the flower or florets start to open up. And then don't forget these side shoots that will be coming along a little bit later. Now the broccoli, we've got plenty of it, and we have 2 successive plantings so it doesn't all come off at one time. And we did the same thing here with our yellow zucchini squash, and this particular variety is Gold Rush. In the first planting here on the right, we've got quite a bit of harvest from it, and then we've got a second planting over here which also we got some production from. And you can see the yellow zucchini, it's best to harvest it smaller, and again, even right with the flower on it, it's still very edible and tender. But remember, we left some of them on to get pretty good size so we could paint on them for the Halloween season, and this is just another one we left on. It's really turned out to be a huge one, and look at the difference in the color too. They're really a beautiful plant, and it's just like the other zucchini. It's very prolific, and it really will produce. And we've got a little bit of powdery mildew on the foliage, and we won't treat it because the freeze is going to get it before the powdery mildew. So we're going to come in and harvest all of the zucchini, even the small ones, so we make sure we get as much before it succumbs to even colder temperatures tonight. Now, the same thing with our pole beans. These are Kentucky Wonders. We got great production from the fall garden, and we've got some small ones on here and also quite a few larger ones. Now again, we didn't spray any during the fall garden, so some of the cucumber beetles and different insects came and also chewed on the beans, but we're able to salvage those because we don't mind our fruit not looking picture perfect. But we'll come in and we'll make sure we harvest all of that too. Now the tomatoes, we didn't really get those suckers in that we planted going early enough to get much production. They started loading up with blooms, but we've got some green ones on there, so don't forget you can harvest those and eat green tomatoes. And then lastly, I want to show you our potatoes. Remember, these were from our spring crop. We saved some over, kept them in the refrigerator to break the dormancy, which we did especially on the red ones, which are the row on the left. The white ones, we didn't get too many to germinate. But we really haven't got a lot of foliage. They haven't bloomed yet, so I don't think we'll find any potato tubers under the ground. But let's just see how they're coming along. Well, we did get a few small ones, and that's not too bad for a fall garden. So we've got some we can use as new potatoes. We'll harvest those. It's a little bit of fun. You know, we didn't get a lot of production, but we were able to save some through and get a few. So we'll dig those up and see how the production goes too. Now I'd like to show you how some of our annual fall flowers are coming along. One of the favorite attractions in many gardens are scarecrows, and this is one that we've got here in our display garden for the fall. And you know, scarecrows are really pretty easy to make, and there can be a lot of different ideas and designs. We see them from pumpkin heads, etc. But like many ideas, a group of individuals from Chase Mills, New York came up with the idea of recycling clothes and actually selling scarecrow kits. So they sell the frame and the clothes and everything, and they range anywhere from $25 to about $45 depending on the style. And they heard about Oklahoma gardening, so they sent one to us here to put in our display garden. So we're very appreciative of that support, and again, it adds a lot to the garden, and it adds a lot to your garden and your imagination as well. Now, in our fall garden here, we've got some flowers. Now, these are actually vegetables that are used as ornamentals for a flower display. And these are our peacock flowering kale, and we've shown you those with our mailbox planter earlier, but I wanted you to see the contrast in color, and they're doing very well. And again, they like this cool temperature and will grow until the hardest part of the winter temperatures get to us. So again, there's purple and white and a real lacy foliage. And you know, we've had it here behind our pumpkins. I just wanted to say that if you used some of these orange pumpkin bags or trash bags and you fill them up with mulch or leaves or grass clippings or whatever, make sure that you don't take those to the landfill. We are seeing a lot of these being used in many of the different towns and cities. And again, don't send them off. Recycle them, mulch them, compost them, keep them until the spring and use them. But they make a great mulch for the different fall flowers that you can plant this time of year. And on top of our bag here, we've got some of the new varieties of Dusty Miller. And this one is very cold tolerant. They'll last sometimes throughout the entire winter, depending on which location you plant them. We've seen some of these on south sides of homes that have made it through the entire winter and then just kick off through the spring and sometimes even grow through the summer, but they'll send up a flower shoot. Now this particular one is called Silver Lace, and it's a different cultivar. It's a very lacy texture. It kind of reminds me of a yarrow plant as a perennial. And then this one over here is Silver Dust, and you'll see again, a whitish cast to it, a little bit different shape of the foliage. So we'll be planting those here for the fall garden as well for some little bit of different color contrast, because they're more known for their lacy texture, their color, their foliage versus flowers. Now some other interesting ones that we have here next to the hay are actually marigolds, but they're referred to as marimums. And this particular variety is actually more cold tolerant, and so they're planted in the fall, and you can see these big pom-pom mum type flowers, but they're actually marigolds, and they will withstand some of these colder freezes that we have initially, and they make a perfect contrast here for our fall vegetable and flower display. Now the mulch we're putting in here are cottonseed hulls, and I wanted to point out this is where we had our tomatoes planted earlier on in the summer. And we tilled up some of the little yellow pear tomatoes, and you'll see we're getting some of those starting to grow again from the seeds. And also over here you'll see some vetch coming up that we planted a year ago as a cover crop during the winter. And we let some of it go to seed, and sure enough it's starting to come back. So that's why you've got to be very careful when you're using cover crops. But again, you'll see the flowers are just starting to come into color here, and again, it's really a nice contrast. Now this one row we've saved for some pansies that we're going to plant that are actually black in color, but we've not put them in yet because they're a little bit later. We had some trouble with the seed germinating, but we thought we'd have a good contrast with black and orange. And these pansies here are one of the new varieties that were released for 1991 as an All-America selection, and they're called Padpaharaja or Paraja, and they're actually the first true orange pumpkin color, and they're starting to bloom for us. So again, it's a nice contrast with the black pansies that we'll get in, and they're pretty cold hardy as well. Now the reason it got this name, which I'm having a difficult time pronouncing to start with, is because it's named after a rare orange sapphire found in Sri Lanka. So again, it's one of the All-American selections, and it's the first true pumpkin-colored pansy. And really, it's a nice contrast. Now, on the other side here, we've got some more fall annual flowers that do really great in the spring and in the fall, and these are petunias. We've got 28 different cultivars here that we're doing a test with Texas A&M Extension Service to find out which ones are going to take this cold weather a little bit more. And we'll be sure and pass those results on too. On the other corner here, we've got some more pansies. We've got multicolors. We've got purples and orange, red, whites, many different colors. And the thing you need to remember is pansies, again, are one of those that will take the cold temperature, sometimes all the way through the winter, depending on the variety and the color. Now, as a general rule, yellows, oranges, and the purples withstand the cold a little bit more and are usually a little bit more prolific. There's also grandiflora pansies, which have bigger flowers, and we've got one here that is a purplish white that we'll show you, but large flowers, but they don't hold up in the wind as much because they get blown around and damaged, and some of them aren't quite as cold tolerant, versus the multifloras that are a little bit lower growing, smaller flowers, but very prolific. Now the thing you need to remember is even though these are fall flowers, you need to deadhead them, even the pansies, and that will extend your bloom period. And again, if you're not finding these or it's too late, depending on which part of the state you're in, to plant them, don't give up, because in the spring a lot of these can be planted in February, and they make great early spring crops as well during those cool temperatures. There's also pansies that are very heat tolerant, and we'll share some of those results and plant material with you next spring.
We hope you enjoyed this video. It's part of our OK Gardening Classics YouTube channel. You can also find more recent videos on our Oklahoma Gardening YouTube channel. And join us on social media for great gardening tips, photos, and discussion.